What's up, guys? Emmanuel Jones here, and we back at with another NFL record prediction. We're here with another video, and we're gonna be doing our NFL offseason tier rankings, and we're gonna see I'm gonna give you my thoughts and my opinion on which team I think is gonna land on. So when you get a chance, if you do, just before I get to my video, don't forget to before I give you my thoughts, don't forget to put the thumbs up to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more options. And don't forget to comment down your opinion below to see who you think. Like, do you think so we're gonna get started here. So we got we're gonna go through the roles. So we got franchise changing, a team, who adds a big time quarterback, running back, receiver, or pass rusher, linebacker, cornerback, safety, or a big time offensive line. I mean, all that stuff that's gonna like change their team. Very nice is I like what you did. It was very nice. Improved a team where they made some ton of moves, but they just improved their team to get better. Stay the same means that you basically stay the same, but you add some players in free agency, but you basically stay the same. Not a fan of means that you totally got worse than that. I could be not a fan of your team. And then last year we got WTF, which means that you had the worst offseason, which I don't like what you did. What you did nothing this offseason. So we're gonna get started. We're gonna go by alphabetical order because it's much easier. So, by the way, we're going to get started here with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals here, they're a team that definitely made a ton of moves. Now, new coach Shane Steichen, and then who knows if Kyler Murray is going to be healthy by the first season. Like, who knows he's going to be ready by week 1? Who knows? And then, the Cardinals look like, they got it's going to be a new culture. And then you got Kyler Murray and, the offensive line, it improved a little bit by adding a tackle in the first round. But their weaponry is still good as long as D-Hop stay there, because I feel like D-Hop could be on his way out. They got tons of weapons here. Now, defensively, I kind of really like what they did through the draft. They added an edge through to the second round, and then the third round they added a corner, and then the third round they added a receiver, and then the fourth round they added most of their draft picks I really don't like about their team. So they could look to be one of the worst teams in football. But so, by the way, since they kind of had almost a bad offseason, I'm going to say maybe I'm arguing between not a fan and WTF. But you know what? I'm going to say I'm just not a fan of their offseason because I don't really know they made a ton of moves, but I think they did make some moves to get better. So that's why I think I'm going to be not a fan of their team, depending on how healthy Kyler Murray stays. So, yeah. And all right, then another team we have is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are another interesting team. They're a team that made a ton of moves this offseason. Now, I like their draft picks this year, adding a running back, B.J. Robinson, in the first round. and then you added a guard through the second round, and then you added an edge through the third round, which is awesome. And then you added another cornerback, and then you added a safety in the seventh round. So yeah, I kind of like most of your draft picks. And also I like what they did this offseason, though, improving their defense, like adding some additional Calais Campbell, and then you added David Ayamaya, Bud Dupree, then you added you traded for Jeff Okuda, which that was nice, and then get Jesse Bates. So the Falcons defense is totally going to be a lot better than it was last year. Offensive line is pretty good. The weaponry is pretty good. You added Mac Hollins in free agency. You got Kyle Pitts, who's gonna break out his third year, and then you got the wide receiver. You got Drake London, which he can break out in year 2, which that's pretty nice. So yeah. And then also you got Desmond Ridder as a quarterback who they're sticking with. I mean, if they would get a mobile quarterback, I think this will be franchise changing. But I like their offseason moves they did. Arthur Smith is doing a good job with the offense, and Dean Payne's doing a good job bolstering up the defense. But I'm gonna say the Falcons, you can argue that very nice an improvement. But you know what? I'm gonna say they had a very nice offseason. So yeah. So the reason why I'm saying it's very nice is because I like their moves, and they bolstered up the defense, and they added another weapon on offense, drafted a running back, and they drafted a pass rusher on defensive line. That's what I really like. So it's very nice. The next team we have is the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are another interesting team, though. I kind of really like what they did this offseason. They what they did, they added they brought back Lamar, which that's good. They added Odell Beckham, which that was pretty nice. And then they added Zay Flowers through the draft, which that was nice. So I think the receiving core is definitely going to be special. And then you got an offensive line, which that's very good. And then defensively, you're getting older, but you're still solid. They drafted a linebacker in the third round, and you drafted an edge in the fourth round, and you drafted a cornerback in the fifth round, which that was nice. So I kind of like most of their draft picks and all that. So yeah, that's what I really like about this team. And also John Harbaugh's still a good coach, and then they added an offensive coordinator because they added Tyler Munkin as the offensive coordinator. I think he can help, make his scheme work offensively and work with the receivers of Baltimore. So yeah, but by the way, you can argue saying that it was very nice offseason or very improved. You can argue both that it can be very nice, but I'm going to say, this was an improvement because they improved the receiving core. Because they improved they upgraded their receiving core by adding OBJ and Zay Flowers through the draft, which that was nice. So I think the offense will definitely be a lot elite than it was. So yeah, I say the Ravens, I put them in an improved category. Next team we have the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills, they're another interesting team, I feel like they're another interesting team. I like what they did through the draft. Now I know that they've lost some players. They lost Isaiah McKenzie and Tremaine Edmonds in free agency, which that's kind of bad. Because, I feel like the Bills' defense could definitely get a little bit worse. May not be good as last year. It might regress because they don't have Tremaine Edmonds, and Von Miller may not be the same. He could be rusty coming off an injury. But here's the thing. I like what you did through the draft. You added Jorwin Williams in the 3rd round, and then you added tight end in the 1st round to go along with Dawson Knox, which that's good. So I think the offense could be special. You added you added a wide receiver in the 5th round, Justin Shorter. You added another receiver, which that's awesome. 2nd round, you added they added a guard. They added Cyrus Torrance, a guard, in the 2nd round to improve that offensive line. So I think their offensive line should be better this year. The receiving core should be good. The defense might regress a little bit, but it could be overrated. So yeah. So by the way, I think the Bills a little bit improved a little bit, but I'm not gonna say they get worse. But their secondary is still strong. I mean, they brought back Jordan Poyer, which that was very nice. They re-signed him, and then they added Taylor Rapp for agency and Hamplin. So the Bills secondary is very loaded. So I'm just gonna say they just stayed the same because basically I think they're just the same team as last year. So yeah, but we don't really know that they're going to be the same without their coaching staff because Leslie Frazier, is he quit, and then you got you're gonna have to get a new defensive coordinator because Ken Norton is still a good offensive coordinator, which that's so yeah. So I say the Bills stay the same. The Carolina Panthers is next. I'm gonna say the Carolina Panthers is franchise changing because basically the reason why I say they're just franchise changing is because I feel like the Panthers are just like franchise are just like changing like their team, like they're like because they got a new quarterback in Bryce Young, and I feel like that's gonna change their franchise, and I think that's gonna make them a lot better. Now I could argue saying that it could be a very nice offseason, or I can argue saying that it was very improved because they added Adam Thielen in free agency and they added DJ Chark to the offense, and then basically they got Terrence Marshall who's still there, and then they added Jonathan Mingo through the draft, which that was nice. So I think the offense improved and added Aiden Hurts, so I think their offense should be good. And they added Miles Sanders, which that's very nice. But I think the offense, offensive line should be better, but it still needs some work though. But I think it got better, adding a guard. So yeah, that's what I like. And then you added a pass rusher. Defensively, they did improve through the draft, adding DJ Johnson in the 3rd round. And then you added a safety, Jamie Robinson. And then you added Von Bell, which that's nice. And then the secondary is still pretty good. So, yes, I think the Panthers should be a lot better than they were last year, which they should have made the playoffs. So, I think this is a team that could definitely make the playoffs and win the division. So, yeah, so I got the Panthers as franchise changing. The Chicago Bears are next. Now, Chicago Bears, I kind of really feel like I like what they did this offseason. They added I like what they did, bolstering up the offense, adding they added DJ Moore, which that was pretty nice. They added a big time receiver in DJ Moore, which that's very nice. To make their offense a little bit better. And then they added Deonta Foreman to the running game and lost they replaced David Montgomery when they lost him with Deonta Foreman, which that's nice. They can also improve another running back. Now, Khalil Herbert, I don't know if he's going to be the answer. So, yeah. So, the Bears' weaponry should be good. But, yeah. And then now the offensive line got better a little bit. Nate Davis was a good pickup. Jason Peters is still there. They added Darnell Wright in the 1st round, which that's good. They need a tackle. Defensively, they're still a little weak on defensive front, but the linebackers, they did improve, adding Edmonds and Edwards. Then D tackle, they got Dexter. They added Gervon Dexter in the second round. And then secondary is pretty young. They need to look to improve it. They added a cornerback in the second round too. And then they added a D tackle in the third round, which that's nice. And then they added Tyler Scott through the fourth round. And then they added a linebacker, Noah Sewell, in the fifth round. And then Terrell Smith in the fifth round. And then you added a D line, Travis Bell, through the seventh round. Then you added a safety in Camus Williams in the seventh round too. So I don't know if I really like their draft picks, but I think they were very nice. And then I feel like Eberflus has a little bit to work on, has to work a little bit on his defense and make his scheme work. So, by the way, I think the Bears kind of did a good job though this offseason. You can argue saying that this was they improved, or it was a very nice offseason. You can argue saying that they improved their team because they did improve the receiving core a little bit, adding another receiver. And then, and then they did improve the linebacking position and defensive line a little bit. So, by the way, I'm going to say it was a very nice offseason because I feel like the Bears did a very nice job, improving their offensive line, adding a receiver, fixing the linebacking position, and adding another defensive line through the draft. That's what I like. So, yeah. So, I'd say it's very nice. Then Cincinnati Bengals are another team. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals, I like what they did this offseason. Now, the bad news is that they lost both of their safeties, in Bates and Von Bell. And then, they still got Dax Hill as a safety, which, I think he could replace one of these guys. But which their secondary is definitely pretty awesome. We don't know if Eli Apple's going to come back. Now, I like what they did through the draft, adding an edge player, Miles Murphy, through the first round. And then second round, they added DJ Turner. And then they added Jordan Battle through the third round, which I really like. They replaced those guys with Jordan Battle. And then they added Charlie Jones to the fourth round to add another fourth receiver. Then they added Trace Brown to the fifth round. And then the sixth round, you added another receiver. And then the sixth round, you added a punter. And then seventh round, you added a corner. So, which that's very nice. But the offensively, they can get better. Offensive line is definitely totally good. I feel like it's still the same. But you know what? They added Orlando Brown in free agency, which that's pretty nice. Because that's what I like. Because they added Orlando Brown in free agency, which that's very nice. And then you added now offensive line still is good. So yeah, and then Lou, his schemes is going to be working really good with his defense. And then the offense is definitely the same as well. So yeah, we don't know what's going on with Joe Mixon, but I still think he will be on the roster. So basically, I'm gonna say the Bengals just stayed as you can argue saying that they improved or it was a very nice offseason due to Orlando Brown addition. But I'm gonna at least say, they just stayed the same. I'm gonna say they just stayed the same because basically they were just the same team as last year, despite the Orlando Brown addition. And despite what they did through the draft. So I'm gonna say the Bengals they stay the same. The Cleveland Browns are next. Now the Cleveland Browns, they didn't have a first or second round draft pick. Now, this is a team that definitely had a good offseason. They traded for Elijah Moore, which that was very nice. They added a second receiver, which that's very nice to go along with Amari Cooper. So I think the receiving core improved. Running back position is still the same. Tight end's the same. Offensive line is pretty good. Defensive line, is pretty good, but they added Joe Woods. They fired Joe Woods and added another defensive coordinator, but they added Dalvin Tomlinson to the D-line, which is very nice. Linebacking position is still good. Secondary is very strong. They can look to add another corner. Now, I like what they did. They added another receiver in the third round, adding Cedric Tillman. and then you added a D tackle through the 3rd round, and then you added an offensive tackle through the 4th round, and then you also added an edge through the 4th round as well. And then you drafted a corner through the 6th round, 5th round actually, and then you drafted a center, which that's very good. I like both their draft picks, and I feel like I like what the Browns kind of did this offseason. So by the way, I'm gonna say you can argue saying that they stayed the same, but they lost John Johnson, which that's kind of bad. But they can at least like add another safety, you know. But I think you can argue saying they stayed the same or improved, but I'm gonna at least say that I'm gonna say they just improved, just because I just feel like they improved their team, and you can argue saying that they're the same team because they stayed the same as last year as well. So yeah, I got the Browns as improved. The Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are another interesting team. Now, I like what they did through the draft. They added a D tackle through the 1st round, and then you also drafted a tight end through the 2nd round, which to replace Dalton Schultz. Now, the bad news is that they lost Dalton Schultz. You replace him through the draft, adding a tight end through the 2nd round. Then you added a linebacker to the 3rd round. You added an edge through the 4th round. You added a tackle through the 5th round. Then you added another running back to the 5th round. And then the 6th round, you added a cornerback. And then the 7th round, you added a wide receiver. And then in 6th round, you added a running back. So I don't really like most of their drafts, but I like just some of them. So I think the Cowboys, and also I like the addition of Brandon Cooks as well. So I think the receiving corps should be much better for them, and also the defensive line, the secondary should be better with the Stephon Gilmore additions, especially to go along with Diggs. So I think their defense mostly likely stayed the same. You can argue saying that Dallas stayed the same, but since I like what they did this offseason, you can argue saying that it improved, but I'm going to say that it was very nice because recently I think Dallas, had a very nice offseason, with the additions that they made. So, yeah, so I just put the Cowboys as a very nice category. Next team, we have the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, I like what they did through the draft. They added a receiver through the 2nd round. They added a linebacker through the 3rd round, a corner through the 3rd round. They added a safety in the 6th round. So basically the Broncos kind of had a good draft though. Now defensively, they're definitely pretty good. They added DJ Jones. DJ Jones is still there. Randy Gregory's still there. But I don't really know if their defense stayed the same without Bradley Chubb, because Bradley Chubb left. But the offensive line did improve by adding McGlinchey. And then, the receiving core is still the same, which is pretty good. Then the running back position, Devontae Williams should come back healthy. And then they added a big-time coach in Sean Payton, which I think he can like change the franchise. And the secondary is still the same. So, yeah. So, by the way, I kind of really feel like I like what Denver did this offseason, because I kind of really feel like I like the moves that the Broncos made. I think the Broncos deserve it. So, by the way, I kind of really feel like you can argue it is very nice, but I don't really know if they did much this offseason. But I'm going to say that it could definitely be franchise changing because of the addition of the coach. But I'm going to say they just improved because I just kind of feel like the Broncos did enough to improve their team. So, yeah, I'm saying that. So, I'm going to say they improved. All right, next team we have the Detroit Lions. The Lions, are another fascinating team. Now, I like what they did this offseason. They added a run. Now, they got rid of Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, and then you just added Dave Montgomery to replace those guys, and then you just drafted a running back through the first round, which that's very nice. And then you also drafted a linebacker through the first round, and then you drafted a tight end. You also drafted a tight end. They traded T.J. Hockenson during the season, and then you also replaced him in the second round, which that's nice. Then you added a safety through the second round. You added a quarterback in the third round. You added a D tackle in the third round. You added a tackle through the fifth round, and then the seventh round you added a receiver. So I think the Lions did improve their offense a little bit. Now, offensive line will be totally good. It's the same as last year. Defensively, they should be a lot better than they were because they were pretty good. They sucked last year until they start getting better. So, yeah, and also I like the additions through the secondary. So, secondary is much improved by adding Cam Sutton and Mosley. And then you also added Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which that's very nice. Now, I can argue saying that the Lions, I'm going to say the Lions, you can argue saying that they're improved or very nice, but I'm going to say the Lions had a very nice offseason because I just really like what the Lions did, adding a safety in free agency, drafting one in free agency, drafting a running back, drafting a linebacker by improving the defense, receiving court improving a little bit. So, yeah, so I say the Lions had a very nice offseason. Now, I'm going to do something here. So, instead of not being a fan, I'm going to, say got worse. So, by the way, I just changed the tier to got worse. So, next team, we have the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, they're another interesting team, though. I kind of really know that they lost Aaron Rodgers, but I kind of really like what they did this offseason. I like what they did to the draft. They did improve their defensive line a little bit by adding Lucas Van Ness. They drafted a pass edge in the first round, and then the second round, you drafted a tight end, and in the third round, you drafted another tight end. But in the second round, you drafted a wide receiver. In the fourth round, you drafted an edge. And then the fifth round, you drafted a wide receiver. And you drafted a D tackle in the fifth round. You drafted a kicker, and then you drafted a corner in the seventh round. And then you drafted a safety in the seventh round, and then you drafted a running back in the seventh round, and then a wide receiver. So the Packers kind of really drafted pretty well. I kind of really like what they did. Getting their offense younger, building around Jordan Love. Christian Watson's in the second year. Aaron Jones still a stud, and so is A.J. Dillon. Offensive line, is still pretty good. Defensively, they did improve, like I said, and secondary's improved as well. So basically, I can argue saying that Green Bay stayed the same or saying that they improved. But due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is gone, I'm going to say that the Packers, just got worse. Because literally they just got worse by losing Aaron Rodgers. And then, but their offense will not look, they probably won't be the same without Aaron Rodgers, but I still think their defense will be the same as well. And I feel like their defense will keep them in a lot of games like they always do. So yeah, I say the Packers got worse. Then the Houston Texans, is next. Texans, is franchise changing because the reason why I put them in franchise change is because literally they changed their franchise, adding a big time quarterback in C.J. Stroud. You added an edge to the first round and Will Anderson to improve that defense. You added a corner in the second round, which that's nice. You added a receiver in the third round. You added an edge to the fourth round. You added a linebacker in the fifth round. The sixth round, you had a center. Seventh round, you had a safety. And seventh round, you had a wide receiver. Sixth round, you had a wide receiver. So I feel like I like most of their draft picks that the Texans had. I like most of their draft picks because, DeMeco Ryans is a new head coach. I feel like they could definitely get some learning curve, a new quarterback, a new system, could be a new culture. So it's probably going to take some time. So, by the way, I have the Texans, just franchise changing because I think they did change their franchise. So, yeah. So, I'm going to say the Texans, they could definitely be. I feel like they did have a good offseason. You could argue saying it was very nice or very improved. So, yeah. But because, they added Jimmy Ward and then they added and all that. So, their secondary should be better and their defense should be better and their offensive line should be better because they added Shaq Mason. So, yeah. So, I got Texans as franchise changing. Next team, we got the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts, new quarterback, new head coach, which guy can definitely make them more competitive. Now, who knows? Now, the Colts got rid of Matt Ryan and replaced him with a new quarterback and Anthony Richardson. They lost Gilmore in free agency. They traded him away. They lost Bobby Okereke and Kamiko Ture. So I think the Colts defensive line is still okay, but it may not be the same as last year. But I think their offensive line is not as good. They need to improve that. They need to revamp that. It's very old. Receivers, they're good but not great. They added I like what they did through the draft so far. They added a cornerback in the second round, and then the third round they added a wide receiver and Josh Downs, who I really like. And then fourth round, they added an offensive tackle. They added a D tackle to the fourth round. They added another corner in the fifth round through the draft. Then they added a safety. Then they added a tight end in the fifth round. Then they added a cornerback in the seventh round. Then a linebacker to the sixth round. And then they added a tackle through the sixth round. So I like what the Colts did, but due to the fact that they lost Gilmore, you can argue saying that they stayed the same. But, I like the Isaiah McKenzie addition. I think that's nice. I can say they did improve their receiving core. Or maybe they stayed the same. But due to the fact that they lost their number one corner, I'm going to say they just got worse. Because I just kind of really feel like I just don't really like what they did this offseason, losing the big-time corner. So, yeah, I got the Colts that got worse. Next team, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are another team, they I feel like Jacksonville, I like what they did this offseason. They added an offensive line, a tackle through the first round. They added a number one receiver in Calvin Ridley, which make their receiving core better. Now, defensively, I feel like they're the same as last year. Now they added a tight end in the second round. They added a running back in the third round. Defensively, they added a linebacker in the edge to the fourth round. Then the fifth round, they added a corner and an edge. Then sixth round, they added a wide receiver. And then they added and a cornerback. Then seventh round, they added a safety and a tackle and a D tackle and an edge. So I kind of really don't like the rest of their draft picks, though. But I think Jacksonville, now they're a team that they can definitely, they're a team that they should probably get better this year. Because I kind of really like the moves they made. So I feel like Jacksonville could definitely make some. So I feel like I really like the moves here. And Doug Peterson, has done a good job this offseason. Jacksonville's done a good job this offseason, like retaining players. But I just don't really know one player on defense. Now, they're younger on defense. But I could say Jacksonville improved their team. You can argue saying that they improved or they stayed the same because they call Trevor Lawrence the Prince and all that. So, yeah. So, by the way, I'm probably going to say that Jacksonville, I'm going to say maybe they stayed the same or improved. But I'm going to say they just improved because basically they improved their team because the additions that they made. So yeah, so I'm gonna say they just improved. Next team we have the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs. I like what they did this offseason. Now they lost Orlando Brown and Juju in free agency, but the good thing is that they brought back Jerry McKinnon. So yeah. And then, offensive line, they lost Orlando Brown, like I said, and then they replaced him with Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith. They added him. I think he signed with the Chiefs like either yesterday or a couple days ago. I don't remember. And then, in the first, I like the draft picks. They added a defensive end through the first round. And then, and in the second round, you also replaced Juju by adding a receiver in the second round and Rashee Rice. Then you drafted an offensive tackle through the third round. You drafted a corner through the fourth round. You drafted a defensive end in the fifth round and a D tackle in the sixth round. Then you drafted a corner in the seventh round. So mostly I like their draft picks this year. So I think this is a team that the Chiefs are a team that definitely had a good offseason and all that. But basically, I'm not going to say they got worse. But I'm gonna say they're the same team as last year, despite losing Juju and Orlando Brown. I'm just gonna say and Jawan Thornhill. I'm gonna say just stay the same because they basically were the same team as last year. So yeah, I say the Chiefs stay the same. Next team we have the LA Rams. Now the LA Rams, I kind of really like their draft picks this year. They didn't get no first round draft pick. Now they did improve their offensive line though by adding a guard. And then third round, I think they did add in an edge player through the third round, and they added a D tackle through the third round. Fourth round, they added a quarterback. Fifth round, they added an edge, and they added an offensive tackle. Fifth round, they added a tight end, and they added a receiver. And then where did I go at? Then, sixth round, they added a cornerback and an edge, and they added a running back. Then seventh round, they added a punter and a safety. So I think the Rams kind of really need everything, though. Like, I kind of didn't really like some of their draft picks, but I like most of them, though. But, they lost, like, several players on defense. Like, I can't really name a starter besides Aaron Donald on defense because, they lost A'Shawn Robinson, Leonard Floyd. And then, they traded Jalen Ramsey away, and then they lost Bobby Wagner. So, yeah. So, and then, they traded Allen Robinson, which that was good for them, which they needed to. And we don't really know if Matthew Stafford is going to be back because there was rumors about him getting traded, but they're saying he's likely going to stay with the Rams. And the coaching was a question, but I believe McVay is going to be there. So, by the way, you can argue saying that the Rams did get worse by losing their defensive starters, but due to the fact that, they really didn't do much this offseason. So I think I'm going to put them in the WTF because they didn't really do much to improve their team. I'm going to say I'm just going to put them in the WTF category. Like, I don't really know what they're doing. Like, they just had the worst offseason they ever had in years. So, yeah. So, that's why I got the Rams in the WTF category. Next team, we have the LA Chargers. The Chargers, I kind of really like what they did this offseason. They lost Drew Tranquil, and he went to Kansas City. I meant to mention that. Now, they added Eric Kendricks to replace him, so yeah. But the thing is that they're getting older on defense. It could be regression, and then, the secondary is still the same. The offensive line is still the same, but it could get healthier. Now, the receiving core did improve by adding one in the first round in Quentin Johnson. I mean, running back position, I don't know what's going on with Austin Eckler, but I believe he's staying. Then they added an OC in Kellen Moore, which I think is a little overrated. Now, they added a defensive line through the second round and a linebacker in the third round. Then they added another receiver in the fourth round. They added a tackle through the fifth round. They added a D tackle through the sixth round. Then they added a quarterback through the seventh round, which I don't. So I kind of really like some of their draft picks, but you know what? I kind of really feel like that the Chargers, kind of had a very nice offseason, but I could definitely say that they stayed the same. But I'm going to say they just improved, or very nice, but I'm going to say they improved because I just kind of really feel like that the Chargers, just improved their team, improved their receiving core. So, yeah. So, I say the Chargers just stayed the same. Next team, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I like what they did this offseason, I like what they did on offense, adding, DeAndre Carter. You had Jacoby Myers. You lost Darren Waller in free agency and replaced him with another tight end, Austin Hooper. And then you also drafted one in the second round. And then, and I like what you did. Defense, offensive line should be pretty good. It's pretty solid. Defensively, they're probably gonna get better. They added Brywan Young in the third round. They added an edge in the first round. They added in the receiver in the third round. Then they added a cornerback in the fourth round. And then they added a safety in the fifth round. They also added one in free agency. And then they added a linebacker through the sixth round, and then a D tackle in the seventh round. So, and also they added Jimmy G too to replace Derek Carr. So I kind of really like what the Raiders did this offseason. So you could argue saying that it was very nice, but I'm going to say that they improved their team. I'm going to say it just improved because they did improve their offense. They bolstered up the offense. And, their defensive line just got a lot better in the draft by adding an edge in the draft. So, yeah, that's what I like. And then they added cornerback in the fourth round. So, yeah. So, I like what the Raiders did. So, I say it's just improvement. Next team, we have the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are another interesting team. Now, I like what they did this offseason by adding, they didn't really have a lot of draft picks this year, but I kind of really like what they did, But, they lost Mike Gesicki, and then they replaced him in the sixth round with a tight end and Elijah Higgins. Now, the second round, I like what they did this offseason, bolstering up their defense, adding Jalen Ramsey, David Long, and also adding a corner in the second round, which that was pretty nice. And then you added a running back in the third round, and then you added a tackle in the seventh round. So, yeah. So, and then you added like two wide receivers in free agency by adding Robbie Anderson and Braxton Berrios. So the offense should be a lot better. Because now Tyreek Hill is still there. Because I heard him saying that he's going to retire in 3 years. So I kind of like what the Dolphins did. So you can argue saying that it was very nice or improved. You can argue saying it was very nice or improved. So due to the fact that I really like the additions that Miami made, I'm going to say they just improved. I kind of just really like what the Dolphins did. Adding a cornerback through the draft and free agency, adding a linebacker. So yeah, and also adding two receivers. I mean, yeah. So I just think the Dolphins improved. Next team, we have the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota, I kind of really like what they did. They lost Adam Thielen and then they replaced him in the draft, adding Jordan Addison. Tight end still the same. Running back, we don't know what's going on with Dalvin Cook because it seems like Dalvin Cook might be likely on the move. Offensive line is still pretty solid. Defensively, they could get a little bit worse because they lost Dalvin Tomlinson. Zadarius Smith could definitely wants to leave, and offensive. So yeah, and then you added Marcus Davenport, which that was very nice, and you added Dean Lowry. Linebacker position still the same, but you lost Eric Kendricks. Secondary is probably not that good, but you did improve it by adding a cornerback through the draft, and you did add one to free agency, which that's pretty nice. Safeties getting older though, but you did improve it by adding one in the 4th round. 5th round, you also added a D tackle in the 5th round, and then you just added a quarterback in the 5th round, depending on where Kirk Cousins is going to go at. And then you added a running back just in case, in the 7th round, just in case Dalvin Cook leaves. So, yeah. So, I think the Vikings, I kind of really felt they had a pretty much good offseason, but I'm just going to say that they just stayed the same because basically I just feel like they were the same team as last year. So, yeah. So, I'd say the Vikings stayed the same. Next team, we have New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, I like what they did this offseason. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. They added Mike Gesicki. They added James Robinson in free agency. So I think the receiving core did improve a little bit. It should get better. Offensive line, they did improve from the draft by getting getting 2 guards in the 4th round, getting an offensive lineman in the 5th round, and then you got I like what they did. And then defensively, they're still the same. You added an edge in the 2nd round. You added a safety in the 3rd round. You added a corner in the 1st round, which that was the best draft pick I ever seen. You added a kicker. You added a wide receiver in the 6th round. You added a 2 wide receiver in the 6th round. You added a cornerback in the 6th and 7th round. So basically, I think the Patriots defense stayed the same. But I kind of really like what the Patriots did this offseason. Adding some players, like getting a lot better than they were. So, by the way, you can argue saying that they improved or very nice. But I'm going to say the Patriots, I say they had a very nice offseason because I kind of really feel like they did enough to improve their roster. They did enough to improve the receiving core. They did enough to improve the secondary. So, yeah, so I kind of really felt the Patriots just had a very nice offseason. I can definitely say that it did improve, but I'm going to say that it was a very nice offseason. So, yeah. Next team, we have New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints are another interesting team. Now, they added Derek Carr to upgrade the quarterback position, which that's pretty good. Now, running back position is still the same. You added Jamal Williams in free agency, which that's nice. And receiving core is still the same, but I mean, Michael Thomas should be back. As long as Michael Thomas is still there. Jarvis Landry, he looks like he's a free agent now. They lost him. And they traded a tight end away. So they could look to improve that, which I don't know. But so yeah, they didn't do much to improve at tight end, but now offensive line needs a little work. They added a tackle through the 4th round. So yeah, and then you had a running back to the 3rd round as well. Defensively, you got better. You added this. They lost some players in free agency like Davenport and David Ayamaya. You added Brian Brees through the draft, through the 1st round. You drafted another one in the 2nd round. And then linebacker position is still okay. Safeties, are still the same. They added one in the 5th round, and they added a receiver in the 6th round and center in the 7th round. So I kind of really don't like most of their draft picks, though. But due to the fact that the Saints upgraded the quarterback position, Basically, I'm gonna say they just stayed the same because basically they were just the same team as. I'm gonna say they improved because basically they just improved their roster by adding a quarterback. So yeah, you could argue saying it's franchise changing, but I'm just gonna say they just improved. Next team, we have the New York Giants. The Giants are another interesting team. Now, I literally like what the Giants did this offseason. Now, they added, I like what they did. They added a tight end, in Darren Waller. Then, you added Paris Campbell. And then, you also added a wide receiver in Jalen Hyatt, which I really like. You drafted one. And I think you did that in the third round, I believe. And then you added a running back in the 5th round. You added a center in the 2nd round. And also, I like what they did adding a corner in the 1st round, which that's nice. Then you added a safety in the 6th round. Then you added in a safety in the 7th round and a D tackle in the 7th round. So I really like what the Giants did. They added Bobby Okereke. So yeah. So basically, the Giants did a good job this offseason. And then they did bring back Daniel Jones, which that's nice. But I'm going to say the Giants, you can argue saying that they just stayed the same because they can definitely be the same team as last year. But most likely, I'm going to say it just improved because basically they just improved their team. Because they just improved their team by adding a receiver, adding a cornerback to the draft, adding a linebacker in free agency, and bringing back Dexter Lawrence and extending him, which that's nice. So basically, the Giants did improve. Next team, we have New York Jets. By the way, the Jets, is franchise changing because, the Jets, they got Aaron Rodgers, who's a Hall of Famer. But you can argue saying that it was very nice and improved because they added Alan Lazard and Miko Hartman and Randall Cobb. That's very nice. And then the offensive line, is pretty good. They added a center. So, yeah. And then you also added a tight end in the 7th round. You added a tackle in the 4th round, a running back in the 5th round. Defensively, they're pretty good. They're pretty much the same as last year. But you added an edge in the 1st round. You added a linebacker in the 6th round. You added a corner in the 6th round as well. So, yeah. So, pretty much, I like what the Jets did this offseason. It was very nice, but I feel like it's just franchise changing because they added Aaron Rodgers, who was an MVP. So yeah, it was franchise changing. Next team, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, by the way, I like what they did this offseason. They added they lost several players on defense. They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, TJ Edwards. They lost Javon Hargrave. So, but you know what? You did also, I like what they did through the draft. They added Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith through the 1st round. Then they drafted a safety in the 3rd round. They also drafted a tackle in the 3rd round. So their offensive line is still the same, even though you drafted one in the 3rd round. You added a corner in the 4th round. You added a D tackle in the 7th round. So basically, I like what the Eagles did this offseason. But you know what? They lost Miles Sanders, and then they replaced somebody with DeAndre Swift, which that's pretty good. And their secondary is still the same. Their defense still the same. And linebacker still the same. Offensive line still the same. So, by the way, I'm going to say the Eagles, they kind of did improve their team. But it could definitely – I feel like you can argue saying it's very nice. But I'm going to say the Eagles just stayed the same because basically they were just the same team as because they were just like the same team as last year. So they did make some moves a little bit, but I'm just saying they just stayed the same. But I'm not going to say they got worse, but I'm just saying they're just going to stay the same. Next team, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are another interesting team. Now, I like what they did through the draft by adding They added offense. They added a tackle to protect Kenny Pickett by improving the offensive line. Which and then they added Allen Robinson, and then they added Darnell Washington in the mid rounds. So, which that's pretty good. Then they added another tackle in the 7th round, which that was pretty nice. So the offensive line should be better. Defensively, they added a cornerback in the 2nd round, which I really like. They added Joey Porter to go along with Patrick Peterson because they added him as well. So they did improve their secondary. And then they added an edge in the 4th round, a D tackle in the 2nd round. Then they drafted another cornerback, where in the 7th round. And then, so yeah, basically I like what the Steelers did throughout the draft. So by the way, they lost Devin Bush in free agency, which that's kind of bad though. Sad to see. Basically, I can say that they had a very nice offseason, but I'm going to say they just improved because basically they did enough to improve their team. They improved their secondary. They improved their defensive line. They improved their receiving core as well, their offense. And then also they improved their offensive line as well. So, yeah, so I'm going to say the Steelers just improved. Next team, we have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, I like what they did this offseason. They didn't have no further 2nd-round picks. But you know what? They lost Jimmy Ward, and they replaced him in the 3rd round. And they added a kicker. They also added another tight end in the 3rd round. But here's the thing. I like what they did in the 5th round. They added a corner in the 5th round and an edge in the 5th round, which that's nice. And then the 7th round, they added a wide receiver, a tight end, a linebacker, which that's pretty nice. And then they also added a linebacker. They also added an edge to the 5th round, which that's pretty nice. They also added Javon Hargrave in free agency, which that was very nice as well. But offensive line, I feel like it still stayed the same as last year. But they lost Jimmy G in free agency, which that's kind of sad to see. Now, receiving core is still the same as last year. Defense still the same as last year. So despite adding, Javon Hargrave in free agency, you can say that was an improvement. Or say it was very nice, but I'm gonna say they just stayed the same because they stayed the same as last year. Their defense stayed the same, their offensive line stayed the same, and slowly their receiving core stayed the same. So yeah, I'm gonna say the Niners just stayed the same. Then next team we have Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks, I like what they did through the draft. They added a cornerback in the 1st round. They added a wide receiver in the 1st round, which that's pretty nice. So the receiving core of Seattle was pretty good. They brought back Bobby Wagner in free agency, and then they added Devin Bush. So, yeah. And then you also added a D-line in the 4th round. You added an edge in the 5th round. You added a safety in the 6th round, and you also added a running back in the 7th round and the 2nd round as well. So 4th round, you added D-line. You added an edge in the 2nd round, which that's pretty good. You added an offensive lineman in the 4th round as well. You added safety. You added a center in the 5th round. So, yeah. So, I kind of really don't like most of their draft picks, but I just like some of them, though. So, by the way, I kind of really like what the Seahawks did this offseason. You can argue saying that it was franchise changing because Jimmy G looks like Geno Smith was comeback player of the year last year. So you can definitely argue saying that they stayed the same. But basically, they did improve through the draft. And I think you can argue saying it was very nice. But I'm going to say Seattle kind of really changed their franchise. I'm going to say it was very nice because I kind of really like what they did through the draft to improve their team. So, yeah, basically, I'm going to say it was very nice. All right, the next team we have is the Tampa Bay Bucks. The Buccaneers, I like what they did through the draft. Now they lost Tom Brady, which he retired. And, you don't have a tight end, because, you replaced him You actually added one in the 5th round, which that's pretty nice. But you added a linebacker. You did improve the defense a little bit by adding a linebacker and a D tackle. A linebacker in the 3rd round, a D tackle in the 1st round. You also, the offensive line, you added one in through the draft. You added a cornerback in the 6th round. Even though you lost, Sean Murphy Bunting, but you got Jamel Dean, You retain him. You retain Levante David, which that's nice. We don't know if Akeem Hicks is going to come back or not. But, you added a wide receiver in the 6th round. Then you added an edge in the 6th round as well. So, basically, you can argue saying that the Bucs stayed the same. But, they added Baker Mayfield, who I'm not a fan of. But, by the way, I'm going to say Tampa Bay just got worse because Tom Brady is not there. So, yeah, but I like what they did, retain their players, and improving in the draft. So, I'm going to say the Bucs just got worse. Next team, we have the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans, by the way, they lost Robert Woods, but they drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round in Will Levis. And then, there are rumors about Derrick Henry getting traded. We don't know what's going to go on with him, but I feel like he's likely going to stay there. Tight end position, you lost Austin Hooper. You replaced him with in the draft with the 5th round. Offensive line did improve by adding a tackle in the 1st and 6th round. You added a running back in the 3rd round, and then 7th round you just added a wide receiver to replace Robert Woods. So yeah, and defensively they're pretty much the same. They added Sean Murphy Bunting. So yeah, so by the way, I like what the Titans kind of really did this offseason. But I can say that you can say it was just improvement, but basically I'm gonna say they just stayed the same because basically they were just the same team as last year. So yeah, I'm gonna say they just stayed the same. And then last team we have the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, new quarterback. They added Jacoby Brissett. We don't really know who's gonna be a starter though, but they say Sam Howell might take over. But running back position, it's the same. Receiving core is still the same. Offensive line, I like what they did. They added Braden Daniels in the 4th round, and a center in the 3rd round. Defensively, they're basically the same, but they added a cornerback in the 1st round, which I really. That was very nice. That was a huge upgrade. You also drafted another corner, especially in the 2nd round. So you especially did improve your secondary a little bit by adding with 2 rookies. And then you added an edge in the 5th round. You added a running back in the 6th round, and you added a linebacker in the 7th round. So yeah, basically I kind of really like most of their draft picks this year. But you know what? Due to the fact that I think Washington did a good job this offseason improving their roster, adding Eric Bieniemy to the coaching staff, you can argue saying that they stayed the same. But I'm gonna say they improved because I just kind of feel like they did improve their corner position through the draft and their offensive line through the draft. So yeah, I say it's basically just say they're improved. Well, all right, guys, those are all my tiers though. So we're gonna go through the list. Franchise change. I got the Panthers, Texans, and Jets. Very nice. Falcons, Bears, Cowboys, Lions, and Patriots, and Seahawks. Improve. Ravens, Browns, Broncos, Jaguars, Chargers, Raiders, Dolphins, Saints, Giants, Steelers, Commanders. Stay the same. Bills, Bengals, Chiefs, Vikings, Eagles, 49ers, Titans, got worse. Cardinals, Packers, Colts, and Bucks. And WTF is only just the Rams. But you know what? I'm going to change something a little bit. You know what? The Colts kind of did a good job through the draft replacing a cornerback and Julius Brands. But I don't think they did get worse a little bit. But I'm going to say they did improve their corner position through the draft because I think they did a good job replacing Gilmore through the draft. So I might say the Colts, I'm going to say Indianapolis did improve because they did improve their receiving core. Because I think because they did improve their receiving core. I don't know. Maybe they say the same. I don't know. But you know what? I'm just gonna keep it. I'm just gonna say they just got worse, despite them adding Josh Downs to the draft and Julius Brand. So yeah. So that's how the way is gonna be like. So yeah. So thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and don't forget, if you disagree with me, just let me know in the comment below on your opinion on where will you rank your team at. Well, this is Emmanuel Jones for a big fan. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like the video, and you can share this video with somebody, and you can also subscribe to my channel as well. So yeah, this is Emmanuel Jones again from the big fan. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys later. Peace.